Hey, what's up, herd watchers? We haven't talked in a little while, but I had a moment. I'm on my way home from running an errand, and as usual, while I'm in the car, it seemed like a good idea to jump on a stream and sort of fill you guys in on what I'm thinking about how things are going with the Trump presidency and everything that's swirling around. We have about 5 minutes or so let's see if we can get this done. So, we've got a couple things to talk about. One, let's talk about the ongoing Trump investigation, special prosecutor stuff, vis-a-vis the now rapidly unraveling story of Russian collusion, which has completely evaporated. Just FYI, there was never any hard evidence that the Trump organization and Trump himself ever entered into any sort of collusion or quid pro quo relationship with the Soviet government or any representative thereof. It is possible that Mike Flynn was less than entirely forthcoming on some of his forms, whether through confusion or avoidance, I couldn't tell you, and they're attempting to pin some silliness on Kushner, but that's not going to stick either, because as it turns out, simply having business dealings in a country is not the same thing as selling out your government. If it was, then Hillary Clinton's and Bill Clinton's connection to the Clinton Foundation would have disqualified her from the presidency, because Hillary Clinton is far more tied to the Soviet Union business-wise than Donald Trump and his entire organization ever has been. So, basically, there's no evidence that there's collusion involved. And as we've said here before, there's no motive for it as well. If the Soviet government wanted anyone in power, it's Hillary Clinton. She had proved herself to be a useful and easily manipulated lapdog and was well used to taking massive checks from the Soviet government in exchange for influence. So they didn't even have any real reason to care deeply whether it was Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. So the only real smoking gun that there had ever tried to be about this collusion idea was that, in theory, the Soviet government had hacked into the DNC to attempt to embarrass Hillary Clinton by telling people how crooked she was. Because let's not forget, the real damage of the DNC hack, if there had been one, was to simply tell everyone what the DNC was lying about. So the big, horrible Russian crime was in fact going to be not letting Hillary Clinton lie to the American public. That's really it. That's what they're actually upset about. But as it turns out, and as we all knew, or anyone who's really being honest who was in the computer security business knew, there was never any real evidence that the Soviets were behind that hack. And then, in fact, the WikiLeaks had mentioned that it wasn't the Soviets behind that hack, and they have a 100% track record of being accurate about this. No, all the real evidence always pointed to it being an inside job, a leak from within the DNC itself, probably the Bernie Sanders organization, because they were being so badly treated. And now, as more and more information comes out, it's looking like it's Seth Rich. There's electronic communications between him and WikiLeaks. There are statements by Julian Assange that indicate that he's him. There's the somewhat less than 100% credible Kim.com, but in the cases like this, as far as political intrigue, he has proven himself to be fairly accurate with this sort of thing. And so it looks like what happened was that Seth Rich, a hardcore Bernie Sanders supporter, had been leaking documents to WikiLeaks. Mostly, it looks like, in retaliation for how badly the DNC was treating Bernie Sanders. Now, the interesting side note there is that, like so many people engaged in conduct that might hurt the Clintons, Seth Rich wound up dead conveniently at an incredibly convenient moment in time. Now, I know that all sounds like a bad Tom Clancy novel. Particularly, I find it interesting that a whole bunch of people who are willing to spin tales of Donald Trump collusion at the highest levels with Vladimir Putin somehow or another feel that no one in the Democratic Party is capable of hinting at the murder of Seth Rich, though the Democratic Party has been caught on tape paying people to instigate political violence when it suits them, apparently this is, something we're not supposed to even talk about or think about or imply. But let's think about it and imply it. So at the very worst possible moment for the DNC, poor Seth Rich goes, shot twice in the back in a robbery where nothing was stolen, and then left to languish, badly treated at the hospital, passes on. His laptop is taken away from the Capitol Police very quickly by the FBI, and sort of, the investigation is basically aborted, and then the DNC starts assigning handlers to the Seth Rich family to make sure that they don't start asking questions that are too inconvenient. Now, maybe Seth Rich was actually just, killed by a couple of robbers who felt so bad at seeing him dead that they declined to rob him of anything. And maybe the DNC just goes ahead and, makes sure that everyone who's murdered, who's tangentially in their employ, to go and get their laptops and whatever. We know from recent video footage that Debbie Wasserman-Schultz and the DNC are very, very distressed anytime one of their laptops winds up in the hands of law enforcement. They seem to go way out of their way to threaten, cajole, and in any other way they can recover that property, which is interesting, considering the Capitol Police is incredibly friendly to them. So anyway, that's the state of play right now. The Russians hacked the DNC narrative has completely collapsed for lack of evidence, and now it looks like this is a Seth Rich thing. The Comey memos are not turning out to be the smoking gun the DNC had hoped for. It's turning out that they might not be able to impeach Donald Trump within the week, and Donald Trump's foreign trip to Israel and Saudi Arabia has turned out to be a smashing success. He went out and did exactly what he was supposed to. He reinforced our relationship with Israel. Bibi loves him. The Saudis are conditionally happy with him, which, while I'm not thrilled with everything about the Saudis, at least they're not as bad as pretty much everyone else in the region. So all the right people in the Middle East are annoyed with Donald Trump. All the right people are in love with Donald Trump, and NATO has been slapped across the face and reminded that they did promise to pay their bills, but that he's a fan of theirs as well. And so the next time we talk, which will be over the weekend, we'll talk about the attack in Manchester and at the concert. We'll talk more about the trip to Saudi Arabia and what that means. And we definitely have to talk about this branding of terrorists as losers, which, while the media is going to run all around and fall all over itself talking about how that's childish and doesn't make any sense, those of us who have some understanding of sort of cognitive programming and branding and mimetic information flow understands how powerful a move this was and how effective it will be if others pick up on it. So anyway, that's our short take. What was that, 10 minutes? 8 minutes, 10 minutes? That's the state of the world according to Herd Watching. I hope you guys are having a great Memorial Day, and I look forward to talking to you again fairly soon. Bye-bye.